Hello all and welcome to Crochet Designs. My name is Mary and in today's tutorial we are working on part 2 of our granny square sweater vest. And there it is, simply divine, and she's at it again. What do we do, hey? Anyway, so we're working on joining our squares, all right? So what you will need today, firstly, you will need to have completed part 1 of this particular pattern. And I've left part 1 in the description box down below if you haven't completed it, and that's making the squares, all right? In the meantime, for everyone else who has completed, extra small to small, you should have altogether 20 squares complete. You'll only need 9 squares for this tutorial, all right? Medium to 5 extra large, you should have 24 squares, but you will only need 11 squares for this tutorial, all right? Now let me explain that to you. Extra small to small, I'll see if I can fit it in. Yours, by the end of this tutorial, will look like this. You'll have 1, 2, 3 rows of 3 squares, all right? Medium to 5 extra large, you will have 2 rows of 4 squares and then 1 row of 3 squares, all right? It looks a bit odd having that 1 square missing, but don't worry, it does work, all right? All right, so what else will you need? You will need, obviously, your thread to be sewing up your seams. You will need a sewing needle, okay? I'm trying to pick it up. You will need a sewing needle and you will need your hook. Now you're probably thinking all those items just to make, put the squares together. Well, guess what, guys? I'm going to move this out the way so you can see. I did 3 joins in this tutorial. I did the more professional join that you see on that piece, okay? That's more for the most experienced crocheter. Now, if you are brand new and you want to try that join, by all means, take a risk. My opinion is if you don't try anything new, you'll never learn anything new, yeah? So if you want to take a risk, you can. However, that join there is using this needle right here. If you've got one of these darning needles, they're called, where they've got a little flick on the end, kind of lifts up a little, looks like it's bent, that would be great to use. If you've got a normal sewing needle, that's fine too, all right? 2 joins will be made using this sewing needle. 1 join will be made using your crochet hook. Now I used 4.5 here. It's a half a size hook smaller than the actual one that I used for making the squares. It just makes it easier to pop your hook through those stitches, but you can use the same size hook if you like. All right, so in this tutorial you will get 3 different joins and you need to decide what join is best for you. All right, the very first join is the more experienced join. The second join is the not bad crocheter, you're getting there. And the very last join is the most basic join, which is using this hook. All right, so I'm not going to talk anymore because the tutorial does go a long time, as they usually do. All right, but I just want to say this is, let's bring this out a bit. This is part 2 of our granny square sweater vest. And it's the wrong way, by the way. And when we are finished this part, your job is to do another one exactly the same, another piece exactly the same as this. And I explain that at the end of the tutorial, so that's fine. But then once you've finished those 2 pieces, you meet me back Thursday where we can put both these pieces together, pop the top pieces on, and we can do the ribbing edges. All right, so I'm going to let you head off on your own, joining your squares using 3 different joins, and you can decide which one you would like to use. Good luck all. Alrighty guys, so here we have some tools that we're going to use to put our pieces together, and I'm going to show you 3 different joins today, and that gives you the option of what join you would like to use for your pieces. Okay, now I'll also show you the join that I used for the gorgeous vest. Check it out. All right, so I'll show you the actual join that I used. If you want to make it exactly the same way that I did, then I'll show you that one first. That will be, it's a little difficult and it's a bit tricky for the new crocheter. Then I'll show you an easier way using the sewing needle again, and that would be perfect for the beginners. And I'll talk about it when we're doing it anyway, all right? And then I'll show you how to use the crochet hook to just slip stitch across, which will also be good for the beginner crocheter. All right, so let's get started. All right, so thread your needle, whichever one that may be. And you need a long tail because what you're going to do here is you're going to attach all your 3 together to make 6. So you're going to have 3 along here, 3 along here, and you're just going to sew across there like that. And that's all sizes, right? So for all sizes, what I want you to do, we are starting at the base of our vest, right? And we are going to be sewing along that way. That's the base, base, middle, base, middle, base, middle, yep? All right, so we're going to start now. The best part about weaving in all your ends is you don't have to worry about them, but if you left one of these ends, quite all right, not a problem. Try to put them on the sides of your work, so where the side seam is, right? Or on the very, very top where you're going to crochet your ribbing over. Try not to have them in the middle or you'll end up with those tiny bumps. If you use different ways of closing up your square and it's noticeable that there's a bump on it and it's right here, it's going to be harder to sew your pieces together without it being noticed. But don't stress anyway, because I will leave one in the middle somewhere at the back so it's not noticed, but to show you, you can work around that, so don't stress too much. In the meantime, just grab 2 pieces together. This is the right side of your work. How can you tell? When you're looking at it, it looks like that. See those little V looking stitches? They're facing us. If you were working this way, those V's would be folded over. You can't see them, they're right there. All right, that's the wrong side. Plus the wrong side's a bit bubbly looking, whereas the right side looks smooth. All right. So the 3 different ways I'm going to show you. One way consists of the right sides of your work to be facing you. All right, so that's the right side of our work. All right, there, that's the right side of our piece. Turn it over. I want to keep my tail end there on the side. Yeah. So turn it over. Now grab your new piece and there's the right side. Remember I showed you how the right side is and the wrong side is. That's the right side of your work. Pop the 2 wrong sides of your work together. This is for this way of sewing your pieces together only. The other way, you don't do it like this, all right? So all the newbies who want to learn an easier way, just wait there and we'll show you the easy way in a moment. But for the rest of us, this can be a real tricky way of doing things. All right, first thing you're going to do, now I didn't knot my thread because we're going to be weaving that in later. So first thing we're going to do, and it's real tricky, again, like I said, this should only be done by the more professional crocheter. Remember our 2 stitches we had in the center, our 2 chains if you will. What you're going to do is pop your darning weaving needle. Let me get in even closer. I'm sorry about my big fingers, guys, but it'll show you better. You grab the needle on the first chain and you actually just pop it around the base of the chain. So when I say the base, don't do it like that on top. You go under, you go into your first chain from the top, but at the bottom of the chain, or the back, where the back of your finger is there, and then you come through the chain next to it, all right? And you just, let me bring that out, pull that loop through like so. And I haven't given myself a long enough tail here. Okay, there we go. So leave your tail about, I don't know, long enough to weave in later, yeah? So you've done that side, yeah? Now you're going to go to the very opposite side and do exactly the same, but what you're going to do is face your work towards you, and instead of going through that back kind of way, you're going forward, okay? So where's the stitch? Oh, mine is really tight. Of course it is. And you are going into the front of the stitch like so, and just around the whole stitch, yeah? Pulling that through like so. Just be wary if you leave a long tail, that can knot up. Now don't pull it too tight because we haven't made a knot, yeah? All right, so leave that there. Then you are going to go right back into the first square that you did. You're going back into the same loop that you were in, going around it and directly into the very next stitch right there. So you do that, And you don't need to close it all up. You can leave it loose for now because we're just going to pull it later and it'll close up. It's like magic. Looks really, really professional, yeah? So same thing you're going to do here. You're going to go back into that stitch that you were in before and out into the very next stitch there, like so. This is called, well, I don't know what it's called. There's many names for it, but I like to call it the invisible seam. All right, and I'll explain that to you in a minute once we do 3 or 4 stitches, yeah? So back into the front piece, into the same stitch you were in through to the very next stitch, all right? Then you do the opposite side, you go back into the same stitch you were in, like that's where you came out of. You're going into that one, but you're going directly into the very next stitch. And you are actually going through one loop and in through to the other loop, like that. It's almost like you're going into the center of the stitch, put it that way, yeah? But not, it's more the base of both the stitches on both sides, all right? So I'm trying to get in as close as I can to show you. That's where you were before. You're going to pop your needle in that loop right there and go right around the stitch and through to the next stitch there. All right, then you're going to do exactly the same on the opposite side. Now, if you were to sit here and watch me do this forever, it will take us like 100 hours to get this tutorial up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you head off on your own and do this. Real quickly, I'm just going to show you what happens when you open it up. When you grab the tail and you give it a tug like that, guess what? Totally invisible. You cannot, let's pull that tail at the back. You cannot see where you have joined. And all your double crochets, US, trebles UK, should be marrying each other on both sides. Now, if it looks something like that, you've put them in the wrong stitches, yeah? It needs to be married. They need to be married up. All right, so that's that. What I want you to do now is to go across and continue until you get to here. Right there in the corner. No, in fact, don't do the corner. Get to the very last, you know what? Get to that last section. I'll show you close up in a minute. There, let's get a close up. Oh, it came undone. Can you believe it? Hello, I had one job. All right, so just get to the start of the last cluster. Now, if it helps to pop your stitch markers in and marry up each set so that when you come across, everything will line up. So you just marry up one set, and one set, and then you can go ahead and take the stitch markers out as you go. All right, so I'm going to let you head off on your own and do this row right here, and I will meet everyone back here once you're done. You should have kind of gotten roughly around your very last stitch, all right? So I'm going to take out that stitch marker, and again, I'm kind of on the last stitch. I'm more on the second last stitch, so let me just get to my last stitch real quickly. And that's the last stitch on this side, and that's the last stitch on this side. Now that's the last stitch of your second last cluster, yeah? All right, now we need to go to the next 3 double crochets US, 3 trebles UK. So you're going back into your last stitch and into your first stitch of your very last cluster set. Same thing over here, last and then into the first. Don't split the yarn. I took it undone twice, guys, because I split the yarn. I should have done a tutorial for you. All right, so there we go into the very next stitch. So a bit quiet there, guys, didn't I? A little bit silent. She does occasionally. All right. Oh, did I just split it? There you go, guys. Let me show you what happens when you do split the yarn. That happens. And if you were going to pull it shut, you start to see the split. Don't split the yarn. Give me a second. Sorry, guys, I just took that thread out, but being careful not to split your yarn. You can see the split even. Look at that. It's terrible. Okay, so being very careful not to split it. That's better. All right, so now we're in the second back to the third, or the last back, yeah? The third back. All right, we are here. We still need to get into the first chain. So we're going through the back there and into sort of the top, the very last stitch. We're kind of closing up that last stitch. All right, so now what we have is we have already gone into the first chain here and sort of the first chain there. So you want to keep going just for this. But before we do, what I want you to do is just give it a gentle tug. Make sure it's all in place. Grab 2 more squares. All right, let's find another square that doesn't have a thread. All right, now one has the thread. Oh, that's not even. All right, you can pop your thread down the base of your sweater because you're going to put a ribbing crocheted row across here anyways, so you won't see that thread. If you were to put it here, it can be a tiny little bit noticeable, so pop it down there. Now, when you want to do this part, you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, this is the center piece. Where am I going to put my thread? That's where you need to sew yours in or weave it in or whatever you need to do. Now, I would still be very wary of the knot, which will be around there. It still looks gorgeous. Oh, I don't know, looks simply divine. I'm going to leave it there so it doesn't affect you in this row, okay? Because if we had it here, it would be here and it would be a little bit more effective. And we want to show you that later when we're professional getting past here. How's that sound? Yeah, I think that sounds great. All right, so you've got your 4 pieces together now. I'll show you what I've got. That's what it looks like. That's our last stitch, and we've put the 2 squares there. So all you're going to do, let's bring that up, is you are in, or I'm in the base stitch. All right, so being wary about where you are, I'm in the base square. All right, so that means I don't want to jump into the base square here. I want to jump into the opposite square. Okay, so grabbing your new square on the opposite side of your piece, right? Not right next to it, but opposite. Yeah, so you're grabbing your square right there, and you're going through. Let's get a close up. The back loops again. They're kind of like the back loops, aren't they? They're like you're going through the back area of your stitch, pulling it through like so. Then you are going directly over to your very next square here, and you're going through the back loops of your stitch like you've been doing all along, if I can get it, through one chain and through to the other chain like so. And that's the back of the threads, what you've been doing all along. And just give it a gentle tug, making sure that it's not loose. Otherwise, you're going to have that, yeah, and you don't want that, yeah. But we can fix that up later. That's okay. All right. So then you once again are closing your work. We're going to have to fix it up later because it's going to loosen up a little bit now. Closing your work, you are in the chain of this side and the chain of that side, but you're kind of very close to the front of the stitch. So what you want to do is go back into that chain right there and into the stitch, yeah, like so. And the same here, back into the chain, I can get to it, and into your first stitch. All right, over to the other side, into the first stitch, you're going into your second stitch. It is the back loop, but it's kind of like the front loop of the way you're looking at it, yeah? Those loops right there. I like to call them the base loops and the top loops. I know a lot of people call them back and front. When we're doing this, I like to call it the base loops. Okay, so we're going into the base loops of this square. And the base loop of, going into the back one. It's a little bit tricky, this square. It's a little bit tight for me. Oh, maybe, I was going to say maybe I joined it there, but I didn't. It's just, I must have crocheted really tight that corner. It happens. All right. Yeah, it happens. All right, so we are now into our third stitch right there. Let's do a couple of more stitches so that we can see where we're going to end up. And let's go from third to first of the next cluster set. We should all be at the same spot now, yeah? Third to first of your next cluster set. First to second. Being careful, I nearly split the yarn. And first to second of this side right here. All right, I'm going to stop here now, open it up, and you're going to notice that. And you're going to think, oh, what happened? Nothing. That's normal. That is absolutely normal. So what you're going to do is you're just going to give it a tug, if you can. There we go. It was a bit tight, that one. Really tight. There you go. You're going to give it a tug. On the way back, when we do that side right there, all of this will join up. It looks a bit funny there, but trust me, when we come back the other way, it's going to look simply divine. So your job now is to do... Alrighty guys, now I just went off air for a minute and I should have done this, which we're going to do now. We stopped around there before. All I want you to do is keep going across this way, attaching 2 more squares the same way you did these 2 squares here. Get to the very end right here for now, and we will talk about what we're going to do next, all right? So attach exactly what you did there, attach there, get to the last step there, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, so there's our 3 attached, all right? Now, for extra small and small, you wait right there for 1 moment. Medium to 5 extra large, this is what I want you to do. Add another set. So medium to 5 extra large, you should have 4 across this way and 4 across this way. You should have 8 squares altogether. Extra small and small, you should have 6 squares altogether. All right. So what I want everyone to do, medium to extra large, you add 2 more squares, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty, now that everyone is at the end of their piece, and you've got your 4 attached, medium to 5 extra large, extra small and small, you should have your 3 attached. What I want you to do at the end of your row is this. All right, so I think I'm way down here on my 3rd stitch and 1st chain. I've got to go up here and go back into my 3rd stitch and 1st chain. All right, so you, wherever you are, as long as you're going into your 1st stitch at the very end, either side, right, pop your needle in, grab your loop and pass it over your needle just for a moment, but make sure that everything is all nice and tight all the way across and there's no loose bits, because now what you're going to do is pull that thread and that is going to knot that area. All right, and cut your thread for the length of, oh, it's too far, let's go like that, for the length of, I don't know, enough for weaving in later. I don't know, a hand's worth, yeah? So that's for weaving in later. All right, so where we want to be, where everyone wants to be, let's try that again, where everyone wants to be, extra small to medium, extra small to small, you should have 6 squares. Medium to 5 extra large, you should have 8 squares. Now what I want everyone to do, this is all sizes, I want you to do 3 more squares up the top. The same as you've done here. You start your, let's get our squares like this. 1, 2, and 3. This is all sizes. All sizes need to do those 3 squares. Medium to 5 extra large, you'll have 2 on the side. You don't even worry about that anymore. Ignore that for a while. But all sizes, from extra small to 5 extra large, do another 3 more squares. So attach it along that way, meet us back here, and we'll talk about how we're going to go across this way. All right, so go ahead and do that last row right there, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, it's getting too big for me to fit in, but we are at a stage now where we've done our extra small to small. You've done 9 squares. You've attached all 9 squares, yeah? Medium to 5 extra large, you have 4 along here and 3 up the top. That is where we want to be exactly for now. In the meantime, what we're going to do is, see that line right there? That's already been sewn together. We are going to sew this one here together, all of us right now, this very second. And then I'm going to let you head off on your own and complete some of your squares, yeah? But for now, just turn your piece around. Grab one section where you've already sewn up along here and you need to sew across this way now. All right? Let's bring this up a little so you can see what I'm doing. Grab yourself a needle with a long thread, because your thread has to make it across 1, 2, 3 squares. All right, and that's all sizes right now. Yep. All right, so that means we are going to start right here like we did earlier. We started across this way. I'm not going to show you how to do the whole thing. I'm just going to show you up to a few stitches, and then you're going to head off on your own and do the rest, and then we'll meet in the middle. Yeah, and you know how to do this part. You've done this already how many times? You know, heaps of times, this part. It's the next part that can be a little bit tricky. So we're going, oh, well, actually I find this bit very tricky. That very first stitch that you need to do is always very tricky, the very first stitch. Well, that's normal because we are working on chains and stitches. And so there we go. All right, so this is the easy bit, guys. You know how to do this bit. You really do know how to do this bit, making sure you're not pulling this too tight, otherwise you lose your tail, yeah? And I'm not going to let you sit here and watch me do this at all. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say just this. Continue along the way. I'm going to grab a stitch marker. It went flying across the room before, guys. And just get into your, I reckon, your second last stitch just before the corner. All right, get to there and I'll meet you there in a moment, and then we will join our corner together. You're going to love this join. All right, so get to that stitch marker right there and I'll meet you there once you're done. Alrighty guys, I asked you to get to this stitch marker. Did you find it difficult to work with this stitch marker? I physically had to take it out and put it back in. Don't you love it? I had to take it out and put it back in. Alright, so you're going to do your second last stitch and your second last stitch to your third. Not sure how you ended up. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're getting close to the third stitch. That's the second stitch and the third stitch done, and that's the third with the chain. All right, now this I'm going to show you relatively close. Hopefully you can work it out. You're in the second and the chain. I'm sorry, let's try the third and the chain. You can't count. All right, so what you've got here now is all these top loops. Notice how we've been putting them through the base loops, and there's these top loops left. You need to now go into the top loops to close up the corner. So this area here has 2 top loops. You're going under the first loop, pulling it through, and then you're going back through the second loop in that corner. And that's your first one done, right? Then you're going to do the same with this corner. You're going to go under that first loop right there and out through the top loop of the second side. You know, it looks like it's not going to make it, but it does. Cross over here. We're nearly there, guys. Trust me, you're going to love this. We're on this one. Now we want to go over to this one here. Now this is a little tricky because it's being pulled and I've popped in a few extra chains. Yeah, I've gone through a few extra chains. So there's one of the top chains. Yeah, and we want to come out on the other top chain, which is kind of stuck in here. Where is it? There it is. It's kind of stuck in there. You'll find it. Hopefully yours isn't as tight as mine. All right, so then we are here. When you come back here, you're going straight back into that first chain that you started with, which was over here, right there. Right there, right there. It's all filled up. Just put it through one chain, and then what I want you to do, because you've gone through all the chains in the round, yeah? So now what I want you to do, it's a bit tricky. Get everything out the way so you can see what I'm doing. See there? Come back out through that chain again. And then you're going to start doing the other side. So you're going to go under the chain and through the first stitch, like so. Go to the opposite side, which will be a little bit tighter now because we've been going through all these chains. So under that first chain, you can get it very tight, and through to your first stitch, like that. All right, and what it's done is it's just closed up. Whoops, I'm not even in front. It's just closed up your corner. Then you're going into that first stitch and the second, first and the second, and you actually know how to do the rest. Second and the third, second and the third. This was a very tricky join, yeah? This is why I suggested for the new crocheters to try the other two joins. And that is pretty much what you've done there, which is pretty much what I've done here, all right? And here, all right? So I've done that. Now your job, why am I so close now? Your job is to do the rest all the way across, get to the end right here. Just get to your very, very last stitch, all right? But now what I want you to do is go across this way, do exactly the same with the top loops. Remember how you go through each top loop of each corner, and then go right across here. And then once you get here, I'll meet you there and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, well, I got a little bit so happy and it went a little bit further than the stitch marker, but it doesn't matter. All you needed to do was to finish that row, get to the end where the stitch marker was, and actually I'm not that far off. I just wanted to finish off my row with a loop. Now remember what we do with our last stitch. We don't pull it all the way through, we just pop it under there. But before we do, making sure this is all correct, I checked it all before so I know it's all correct, making sure it's nice and tight and in place, and then you can cut your thread if you like. I'm going to leave that long thread there for future reference. All right, so your job now guys, and I've already done one side here, and your job now is to do that side and to do this one right here. And when you are complete, when all of that is complete, meet me back here and we will talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, for the second join, once again, you're going to have a really long tail like you did with the other join. Alright, exactly the same. The only difference with this join is you're going to work on the wrong sides of your work. So these are the right sides of your work like we had facing us before. So turning this way, this is the wrong side of your work and inside is the right side. All right, and I'm going to work on an area where there is a knot. We'll work on this one here, just so that I can show you what to do when you get to a knot. So let's say, for argument's sake, you are ready to start. Off we go, and we're going to do it this way. All right, so you, like the other join, you're going through some chains, but you're not going to do it the same way. Yours is going to be a little easier. So you're still going to find that very first chain that you see. Let's get it close up. How close can we get? There we go. That very first chain that you see right there on this side, and the very first chain that you see right there on this side. This is the 2 chains in the center. That's your first chain closest to your stitches there. Not closest to this way, closest to those stitches that you're going to start sewing up. So pulling your loop through, once again, the same as the other side. I think my tail is way too long. Don't pull it through all the way. Leave a long tail for weaving in later. Now what you're going to do is go into the very first stitch on this side and the very first stitch of your cluster set on this side. Before you pull through, make sure you're holding that tail over here or even moving it out the way, and then pull it through so that you can see where you're going. This is the tail from the square down below. All right, so we have gone into that very first stitch. Now you're going into the second stitch, which is near the knot, but not the knot, not the knot. You try to say that fast. And into the second stitch on the opposite side. And once again, I've left such a big tail here. Such long tails. Once again, you're going to pull through, being careful not to pull that tail. You should be okay now. You should be far away from the tail now. And then you're going to go into the third stitch on that side. And the third stitch on this side is a tad tricky. You can either go in the space, which I wouldn't. You can go in there, which is probably the best place to go, or you can either go into that tight knot right there. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to go into that because that's the actual chain stitch from your first piece of work. Yeah, you did. All right, so you're there. Yeah, now grab your tail, just leave it hanging for now. Go straight into the first stitch on this side and the first stitch on that side. Again, just leaving your tail there, pulling your loop through. We are all going to be weaving our tails in later, so don't worry about it. Okay, go into your second stitch there and your second stitch on that side. That was the hardest part of doing this particular tutorial for you. The rest is super. Oh, we've gone into one too many. No, actually I'm right. There we go. Super easy. All right, the rest is easy. What I'm going to do is pop this on fast until we get to a bit like the last stitch you saw, which was a bit tricky for you. Yeah, if you're new to crochet, that last join was a bit tricky. So I want you to keep doing your weaving in until you get to that stitch marker right there. And I'll meet you there in a moment. I'm going to pop this on fast and off we go. All right, so I struggled to get my threads through that because this is pulling tight. So I'm going to open that up and get ready to do the third stitch on that section, third on the other side. And I rushed through that last bit for you so that I can hurry up and get closer to the join. The first stitch on the last cluster set, the second stitch on the last cluster set, and the third stitch on the last cluster set. All right, so what you have now, just giving everything a bit of a tug, not too much, you don't want to pull this loop out. You now have most of it done until you get to here. Now you want to do, oh, mine's really tight, look at this chain. You want to sew into the first, it's a really tight chain on this side and the first chain on that side right there. And leave your piece there. Yep. Grab 2 more squares. 1 and 2. Remember, this is the right sides. Actually, when you grab the 2, make sure you grab one that doesn't have a tail. If you've got a tail, it doesn't matter. We can work that out later. And every other tail would be beneficial if it was down the base, so we can crochet a border over it. But again, not necessary, okay? All right, so it just makes it easier later for weaving in ends. This is where you are. You flip your work that way, flip it this way, it doesn't matter, as long as the insides, the right side of your work is on the inside and the wrong side is on the outside. All right, and this way when you turn it out later, speaking of which, that's what it should look like, nice and neat. Yeah, but not as flat as the other join. All right, so you are now officially in the first chain on this side. Let's get a nice close-up for you. You now want to jump in. You're at the back though, which is a bit tricky. You want to jump into the first chain closest to that cluster set from this side, which is real tricky because my chains are so tight it's not even half funny. Don't laugh at me, guys. Yeah, there. And you want to jump into the first chain on the opposite side, and you want to do just that. Now, what you're going to do, make sure that this is closed, not too tight where it's pulling, but make sure it's closed. Get into that very first stitch on this side and the very first stitch on your opposite side, being weary. Oh, I was a bit far away, wasn't I? Do it again, yeah. So the very first stitch on this side and the very first stitch on the opposite side, give it a tug, and notice how it's opening up. You can still give it a tug to close it up. Now, don't stress with this stitch if it opens up right at the very end and you end up with big gaps like that. The thread on the last stitch can be pulled shut to close it up, and we'll talk about that later. All right, so we are now on the back and we're on that first stitch. So now we want to go on to the second stitch on the side, the second on this. Oh, wait a minute, that's not the second. Yes, it is. Come on, Mary, you can do this. Second on that side, right? Then you want to go into the third on this side and the third on that side. All right, so this is super duper easy. You are now into your very next cluster set. First stitch there and the first stitch there. Second stitch there, second there. All right, I'm not going to show you anymore because I think you know what you're doing. However, I just wanted to mention, don't stress if that happens. We can actually, when we get to the end, give it a gentle tug and it pulls shut. Not really tight because you don't want this to be pulling. We want everything to remain flat. But we're going to work on that later. In the meantime, your job, like the other guys, is to do another set across this way. When you finish that set and you get to the end, meet me right there. Let's pop it over and pop a stitch marker in there. Meet me on the very last stitch there and the very last stitch on that side. All right, so your job now is to continue along the way, jump into that corner exactly the same way as we've done here, go right across to that stitch marker, get to that stitch marker there, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, you would have joined all 3 squares, and that's what they'd look like. If yours are coming loose, then just give your thread a tug and that will all tighten up. Being careful though, making sure that each square lays flat. Yeah, so make sure that each square lays flat, otherwise it's going to pull and you don't want that. All right, so then when you get that all sorted out and you know what you're doing, you go back up over here. Take that stitch marker out. Okay. All right, I got to the very second last stitch there, so I need to do one more stitch here and one more stitch on that side of the clusters. I did cut this way too long. It doesn't matter. I'll use it for the next row. And then in your top chain, your first chain on that side, and that didn't work. Let's try that again. There we go. In your first chain on that side and your first chain on this side. Don't pull your loop through all together, okay? So you pull your loop through halfway, and there's your little, bring it out a little bit, and there's your loop. Yeah, you haven't pulled it through all the way. What I want you to do is pop your needle through the loop and then you pull it through, and what it'll do is it will tighten up your stitch like that. Then what you do is you give it a nice long tail and give it a cut. Tails there for weaving in. Yeah. All right, so I just pulled the needle out, as you do. Your next job, very super duper easy. All right, before you do anything else, extra small to small, this is where you need to be. Medium to 5 extra large, you need to attach another 2 squares. All right, so medium to 5 extra large should have 8 across this way. Extra small to small should have 6 squares this way. All right, so once medium to 5 extra large, you do your 2 squares. This is what I want everyone else to do. All right, this is all sizes, this part. You need to attach another row of squares. All right, so extra small to small, when you are finished attaching this other row, you should have 9 squares in total. Medium to 5 extra large, you will have your 9 squares, plus you'll have another 2 squares on the side. Now that might look wrong, but trust me, it's right. Okay, so what I want everyone to do is to attach theirs across this way. Don't forget medium and extra large, you need to do another 2 squares. I did leave a disclaimer up there saying don't knot yours yet, knot yours after you do another 2 more squares. I left that disclaimer there for you. But in the meantime, everyone head off on your own, all sizes, and do another row of 3 squares. I'll meet everyone back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, this is where we should all be. Extra small and small, you should have 3, 6, 9 squares attached already. Alright, medium to 5 extra large, you should have 8 squares attached here, 9, 10, 11 squares attached. Alright, so I hope that makes sense. Medium to 5 extra large should have an extra 2 squares attached at the base of their sweater. And extra small and all sizes should have that top row attached. All right, so medium to 5 extra large, yours will look like this. Small, extra small to small, yours will look like that. All right, so what we're going to do now, we've gone across this way and this way, making sure that you've cast off on your end, wherever that was. We're going to flip our work to the side. We're going to flip it over, like so. I'm just going to do that to get it out the way. And work across this way, all right? So we've already worked across this way. Now we're going to work along this way, which will now close up our piece. And if that's the case, let's firstly get a close-up. And if that's the case, I'm going to show you only a little bit and you can do the rest. Remember, we're on the first chain on this side and the first chain on the other side, which is very tricky to get into, leaving yourself a really long tail. Now, I'm not going to because I'm taking this undone in a moment, all right? This is not the join I'll be using. I'll be using the first join. But in the meantime, you're doing just that. You are going into your next stitch once again, starting your row like normal, as you've been starting all along. So you should be geniuses at this now. This is your second stitch, and this is your third stitch right here. All right, before you continue, grab yourself a blue stitch marker, pop it in the very final stitch on this side and the final stitch on the other, and the bonus is this one has a knot. I'll be able to show you what to do with that knot. So I'm just going to go inside the knotted stitch right there. Oh, I split the yarn. Excuse me, Mary. Let's try that again. Don't split your yarn, guys. Okay, and we're into the knotted stitch. I'll show you that closer in a minute, but in the meantime, what I want you to do is continue along the way, and I'll pop this on fast and we will meet everyone at the stitch marker and off we go. Alrighty guys, getting a little trickier towards this stitch marker, I should say. So I'm just going to take that out and I'm going to do my very last stitch on that cluster set, which is there. Very last stitch on the opposite side, which is there. And the first stitch on this side. And now you've got that knot. Now what you want to do is place your needle in the stitch of the knot, right in that knotted stitch. That's what you want to do. Yeah, and now if it's easier for you guys, you can, if I can get this right, pop your fingers on the inside to grab the first stitch on this side, which can be tricky. Now we'll do it this way. It's a lot easier, I think. It's a little tricky now because we are getting closer, and let's go into the very first stitch on this side right there. Second stitch on this side of this set, second on this side. A little tricky, it might pay to just turn it up and then you can find that stitch. And then you've got your third stitch here and your third stitch here. And now you're at the area where we were before. Remember, we didn't do one chain. Now that one chain is right there on this side, and on the other side it might be tricky to find, but try and get it. Oh, it's real tricky. Look at that. It's there. I can see it, but it's relatively tight. Go into those chains right there. Then you're going to jump over everything and you're going to find the chain from the opposite side, which is, there's your first chain. I can't get it through by the time I find it. And let's just go through there. Yeah. And there's the first chain on this side. Oh, that's tricky, but it's there. All right. So once you do that, that whole section should close up. All right. And then you're into your first stitch, and I think you know the rest. Second stitch, third stitch, and so on. All right, so what you want to do, open it up and have a look at it. So make sure it is closed. Let's have a look right there. And it's, to me, this is not my favorite join. The only two joins I like to do are the very first one and the very last one. All right, that very last one you will see at that time right there. All right, so if you find this join a little bit odd, that's okay. Jump to that very last join, which is very simple for the new crocheter. This one is a little bit easier than the first one, but it's a little bit more difficult than the next one. Okay, I'm hoping all this is making sense. But guess what, guys? Your job now, and it's super duper easy. Sew along there, do this corner exactly the same way you did this corner, get to here, cast off. Sew along there, do the corner, sew along there, do the corner, sew along there, cast off. All right, extra small and small. When you're done, you should have all of this ready. Medium to 5 extra large. When you're done, you should have all of that done. All right, so your job now is to do all of that. Meet me back here at this time along with everyone else, and we will do our very next instruction. So finish off your piece and I'll meet you at that time once you're done. Alrighty guys, this is the final join that you will use. You'll be using your crochet hook for this join. Alright, this is the easiest join to use and it's the one where a new crocheter should use. Alright, so once again you have your right sides facing you for the moment on both pieces. Flip them like the second join. You know, your right side should be the inside of your work and your wrong sides should be facing you. All right, so what we're going to do is grab our hook, and I've left a little knot here so I can show you how to go over your knots, yeah? If you don't have a knot, that's fine. Pop your hook in the little corner, and there you go. Grab a piece of thread. Now you guys can use the full skein because you can actually just keep crocheting until you stop, which is great. So popping your tail over your hook and pulling your loop through like so. Where's the tail? What we're going to do, make your tail long enough to weave in later. Pass it forward so that we can lock that into place because we don't make knots here at Wild Crochet Designs. So we're chaining 1, and in the same space, you're going to do a slip stitch. So pop your hook in the space, pull a loop through like so. I'm crocheting over the tail and pull it through to the loop on your hook. All right, now just pass that tail under your hook, under your thread there, or, you know, at the back somewhere. As long as it's crocheted over once, all you need to do later is weave that end in, yeah? From here, you're going to start in that very first stitch you see right there. You're going to pop your hook into the stitch on this piece, go to the other side. Now it's a little tricky. That first stitch is fairly tight on the other side. Once you get past this section, the rest is easy. Pull a loop through and pull it through to the loop on your hook, yeah? And then you go into your second stitch and your second from the other side, pull a loop through and pull it through to the loop on your hook, and there you go. There's your third, and there's your third on the opposite side. And just keep doing that all the way through until you get to the center. Whoops, let's try that again. Until you get to the center of your piece. Okay, don't do it like I just did, because if you are new, you can miss that stitch. Pop it through the first, pop it through the second. I'll show you what I did in a minute. And this is for the professionals who just want to do this stitch because they like it. I just put them both together like that and went through the whole thicknesses. I did it really fast before. I like doing things faster. It's quick and easy. Pull the loop through and pull it through to the loop on your hook and just keep going. All right. So what I'm going to do here is let you keep going until you get to that little thread right there. This is the last loop in that first, the last loop in the last set and the last loop on that side. So just pop your stitch markers in until you get to there, and I'll meet you there in a minute. And what I'll do is I'll just pop this on fast and off we go. Oh, did you find that tricky, guys? Especially around here where the stitch marker is tightening up everything. All right, so I'm on my first stitch. We're going to go on to the second stitch there and the second stitch on the opposite side, like so. Now here's where it can get a tad tricky. My thread is pulling, sorry guys, because we have our tail. All right, so there's your third stitch on this side. And let's just move that tail out the way for a minute so we can find our third stitch. Right there is the third stitch, like so. Don't keep it too loose, make sure you tighten that up. Grab your tail and just passing it at the back behind your fingers, or at least at the back while you're doing this stitch. That's your first stitch on this side. Now your first stitch on this side is actually the one with the thread. Now it's up to you. You can either go through that knot or you can go through the actual top chain, which I would probably advise to do. All right, pull it through and pull it through to the loop on your hook. Then you're going through your second stitch, and I'll tell you why I advise that, because when you go into your second stitch right here, you find it straight away. Sometimes you can miss it, so be careful. But if you don't go through the chain, you find yourself going through the first stitch on your next set. So just make sure you go through that chain stitch. And we're back in the beginning here. I'm sorry, let's try not beginning, the end. She's all over the place. All right, so here we are at the end. Before we do anything, just make sure you have gone through all the loops. By doing that, open up your piece, and it should lay kind of semi-flat, but not really. Should have kind of a little, like a little dent in there. Okay, and it looks simply divine. Now, if you've made a mistake in any of your stitches, you'll see a piece of thread slipped. I wonder if I've made any. Let's see if I've made any. I haven't. But if you have, you'll see like a little piece of thread slipped out, and you will be able to notice it. All right, but it looks like I did well, so that's good. Oh, before we go on, open it up. That's the right side, remember? Yeah, that's your right side. Grab 2 more squares. 1 and 2. Once again, guys, if you watched the whole video, you'd notice that some of the squares I've popped here, this one here at least, is one where a tail has been weaved in already. All right, not necessary if you've got tails, that's fine. Just you've seen the way we crochet over them, super easy, yeah? Now you're going to flip your work the way you've been working all along, making sure this is the right sides here, and then you are now working on your wrong sides, because this will be noticed if you start changing sizes all over the place, yeah? Okay, so that's that. Before we start our new square, this is what I want you to do. Just going to bring it down so it's out the way. See that little center right there? You need to do a slip stitch in the center, like normal. Pull the loop through and pull it through to the loop on your hook. Yeah. Now you're grabbing your two other pieces. Here's where it can get a little tricky with you. Pop your hook in the first piece and pop it in the second piece. Pull a loop through and pull it through to the loop on your hook. If you leave that loose, that's going to be noticed. It's not like the other stitches where you can pull it tight. You need to pull that tight now. That needs to be not too tight where it's tugging like this. You don't want that, but make sure that it's closed. Yeah. And once again, you're going to find that very first stitch on this side and the very first stitch on that side and just pull the loop through. Again, making sure that your piece is closed. If it's not closed, take that first stitch undone and tighten up. Yeah. And the rest you know. Yeah. You're jumping into the second, which is there. Oh, it's really tight. That one's tight for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, I do my stitches tight sometimes, guys. Don't do them so tight like Mary. Don't do a Mary. And just slip stitch across. All right, I'm not going to show you anymore. What I want for you to do is just that. Slip stitch all the way across there and then add your next two. So do that. Go ahead and add your next two and get to, this is where I want you to get to. Fold your next two over so you know what you're doing. Yeah. Pop your stitch marker in there. So do all of that, get to there, do exactly what you saw me do here and get to right over to here, and then I'll meet you there once you're done. Alrighty guys, so we have now gone across 3 different sections. Yeah, 3 different pieces if you will. We have 6 squares attached right now. What I want everyone to do is, I've actually slip stitched into my very last piece. I'm going to slip stitch into the space right here like normal. Now before we continue, extra small and small we're going to cast off now. Medium to 5 extra large, you need to add another 2 more squares, so you need 8 altogether attached. All right, extra small and small, you only need 6. You can wait right here. Medium to 5 extra large, attach your next 2 and meet us back here. Just pause the video right there and then restart it once you've added your 2. Now that we've all added our pieces, we're going to cast off this side only. All right, so we're going to pull a loop through, and guess what? That's it for you for this side. All right, so what you're going to do is just pull that loop through, making sure everything's correct before doing this. And everyone open up like so. There you go. Extra small to small, yours should look like this. Medium to 5 extra large, you should have 4 squares attached. So you should have 8 altogether, and extra small to small, you should have 6. Now what we're going to do is repeat that again right across the top. But only 4, this is all sizes, only do 3 up the top. All right, so on all sizes to do 3 up the top, extra small right up to 5 extra large, only do the 3. Even though you might, the larger sizes have 2 extra, only do 3. 1 from here right over to there, and ignore that last piece now. All right, so all sizes need to do another row right across here, cast off, and wait for me there, and we'll talk about what we're going to do next. Alrighty guys, extra small to small, you should have 9 squares put together only one way for now. Medium to 5 extra large, you should have 8 squares put together here and another 3 squares on top. Alright, so altogether everyone should have that much, but medium to 5 extra large, you should have another 2 down the base. All right, so what we're going to do now is, now that we've gone across this way and this way, we're going to start going down this way. Super easy. All right, super easy. It is even easier than doing the last bit. Yeah, all you're going to do is flip one row grab your hook and grab your thread yet again. And you're going to, once again, make sure you are on this side, the side where you've already been slip stitching, yeah? Don't do it on the wrong side. Yeah, it has to be on the side that you've already been slip stitching into. And now, all you're going to do is, firstly, let's do that so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, it's all brightened up by doing that. Go into your corner like normal, as though you're starting a whole new row, which you are. Pop it over your hook, pull the loop through, and just passing your tail forward like you've started any other row, yeah? And just chain one, and then slip stitch into the corner, like so. And then passing that tail under and back. Once again, slip stitching in your first stitch. I'm rushing this part because you've already seen it, guys. You know how to start. Okay, so I'm just going to hop into the first set for you real quickly. And then give you some explanations, yeah? All right, so what I'm going to do is pop this on really fast, and we're going to get all the way until we get to, let's pop a stitch marker in the very last stitch of your second last set, all right? And that's what I want you to do. I'm going to pop this on fast, and I'll meet everyone when we get to that stitch marker, and off we go. Alrighty guys, so here we are at the end of this area. Now for this part here, it might help if you popped your hands or your fingers just underneath the area. It's going to be a little awkward, maybe for the first few stitches. Really tug tight on that loop just so that you can continue to get through there. I usually just fly through myself because I'm used to it. I usually just pass it through like that. But if you are new to crochet, literally separate it so you know where you're going. Because this area here, you can miss the loops. Yeah, and you don't want to do that. Let's move that out the way. It's so easy. It's just a little tricky trying to get into the very last stitch, which is knotted for me. Oh no, it's not. It's just pulled real tight. And there's the last two stitches there, one on one side, one on the other. Now we've got our corners. Slip stitch into the corner like that. And before you go over to slip stitch into that corner, I want you to chain one. Yep. Then hop into the next corner. This is how easy this is. And your opposite corner, slip stitch across. And we move that tail out the way. Of course, there's a tail there to annoy us. But it's good so you know what to do with the tails. Into your first stitch, and your first stitch on the opposite side will be fairly tight, so make sure you get into that. And there's the second one right there. And your third one, bonus, has a knot. I say bonus so you can see what I do here, but it's rather split there, so I would go really into that stitch and then into the last stitch. And before you pull that through, just grab that tail and pull it at the back and then continue to pull it through. And then you are slip stitching into your first stitch of your next set, and you just keep going. And later we'll talk about how to weave in all these ends later. And that's for all types of stitching that we're doing today. All right, so guess what guys, I think you know what you're doing. We'll open that up and have a look at the join. Check it out. All closed up and centered. All right, so guess what you're going to do now, guys? You're going to do what the other group did. Oh, I've made a mess of it. Hello. You're going to keep going along there, get to the end of here, cast off. Do exactly the same for this. Get to the end, cast off. Now, once you've done all that, and that is all sizes, Once you've done all that, I can't fit it all in, guys, but once you've done all of that and you've attached all these pieces, your job now, guys, is to do these rows, finish them all off, then do a whole new piece like the second side. This is the front or the back, whichever. The other side is exactly the same. All right, extra small to small, you should have 3 times 3, you should have 9 squares. And medium to 5 extra large, you should have 4 squares, 2 rows of 4 squares and 1 row of 3. All right, leaving your 2 squares on one side and then you're having your 3 rows there. I hope that all makes sense. All right, so now your job is to do just that, guys. I think we've done so well with this. I've tried to ram in the 3 different versions of putting our squares together to help everyone out in all different areas of our crochet. Some of us are just brand spanking new, which would be using the crochet hook. Some of us are new but are still, we're getting there. Then you can use the sewing version, the second one, and some of us are more expert where you can use this version right here. Now, heads up, if you wanted to use this version in the first place, by all means, do just that. I'll mention that at the beginning of the tutorial as well. All right, so thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget to make one more side. Meet me back here Thursday to finish off our granny square sweater vest. Very exciting. Also, don't forget to watch us on our lives at 4 p.m. Wednesday afternoons, 10 a.m. Saturday mornings, Melbourne, Australia time. Marry that up with your country. My name is Mary. This is Crochet Designs, and I'll catch you soon. Ciao for now.